Hello everyone, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video here today, and we're going to be talking about the Denver Broncos 2024-2025 predictions. Super Bowl champs on the way! No, I'm kidding, that's a little bit biased. But it's going to happen, because I'm going to say it happens. No, I'm kidding. No, this is my team, obviously, because I'm very passionate about this video, but you'll see what my opinions actually are of this team right here today. And the non-biased prediction is this video. The biased prediction is Broncos 17-0, Super Bowl victory, easy sweep in the playoffs, and actually shut out all their opponents. Easy, because I'm a delusional Broncos fan. But seriously, guys, I hope you enjoy the video here today. Denver Broncos, actually an interesting case here to kind of analyze, and there's going to be some things I actually really just don't know about. We're going to review a lot of the stats. We're going to review about what the players can actually do, what they have done before, and just see if that can kind of translate into the next year. That's what predictions are all about, so we'll see. Either way, please like down below, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and comment any suggestions for future videos below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Looking at the Denver Broncos depth chart, this is where I think some things are going to get interesting about where my predictions will land. Right now, Jarrett Stidham is the anticipated, quote-unquote, starter for the Denver Broncos. I'm sure most people would probably say they don't think that's right, and I'd probably be the one to tend to agree. However, I said I am going to use this depth chart as my my list. Now, with that said, I think my prediction for all of these players would be the same. It will, no matter who starts. Now, there is a world where I could see Sean Payton starting Jarrett Stidham at the very start of the year. I actually don't think that's unbelievable of a kind of prediction there. I think Zach Wilson's kind of the solid backup in the background. I think he's out of the picture for the most part in terms of starter capabilities. Bo Nix you have as a top-end talent. You draft him in the first round. You're going to give him the shot, or you're going to let Jarrett Stidham, who at least has a little bit of experience, he's decent with the ball. Do you give him a shot first? And do you just let Jarrett Stidham kind of see what he does throughout the season, let Bo Nix kind of get a little bit wet under his feet? I don't actually think it's an awful idea, and that does seem like a Sean Payton move considering the recent success of other players who have done the same performance. Now, where I kind of hesitate a little bit is the capability of Jarrett Stidham is not to the capability of a lot of these other players. I think you could see that happening behind Geno Smith, behind Kirk Cousins, behind Aaron Rodgers, all these little bit more veteran type players who've seen some level of success. Jarrett Stidham is not that kind of player. He just has not had the time as a starter in that role. So that's where I'm hesitant about that. But I will kind of give my thoughts about Bo Nix too. I think I'm optimistic about Bo Nix. I don't think he's going to be the best rookie starter, or rookie that happens this next year. I think Michael Penix will be the bottom because he's not going to start. I think probably Caleb Williams, or it's kind of a toss-up with Drake May and Jaden Daniels getting the amount of yards. I think those two can go back and forth. Then I think Bo Nix will be a solid fourth. I think J.J. McCarthy will not be very successful. And I think that, obviously, like I said, Michael Penix will be sixth. Though I think between Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams, one of them will not have a very, very good year. However, I'm not too sure which of those. I don't think it's going to be Caleb Williams, but I haven't decided whether it's going to be Drake May or Jaden Daniels. I don't know, but I don't think Bo Nix will have that great of a season. I don't think any rookie really has amazing seasons. But either way, even if he's a starter day 1 or whether he's starter day 6, or week 6, week 8, whatever it is, I don't see Bo Nix doing extremely well. Jarrett Stidham, I don't see doing extremely well. We'll talk about that a little bit more on predictions, but Bo Nix is not in a good system anyway, so why would you start him off in the system? Jarrett Stidham at least has some experience, but his skill level has kind of a ceiling at the moment, or at least his floor is very low. Either way you could look at it. So that's done with the quarterback talk. Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, and Jaleel McLaughlin are the running back trio. It's a decent trio. It's just not a great trio. Samaje Perine's their truck. Jaleel McLaughlin's their receiver kind of guy. So every now and then he gets a carry or two. Javonte Williams is the main back there. And Javonte Williams is just not shown out that much. He's a decent player who basically thrives on volume. He can get you 3.5 on average, it seems like, but is he going to get you much more? I'm not too sure. Samaje Perine doesn't have a really big ceiling either. He has a pretty high floor, or decent high floor, but really low ceiling. Jaleel McLaughlin's just kind of a one-trick pony type guy right now. Javonte Williams is kind of falling into that. He gets volume well. And I just don't know if I'm really sold on him. So we'll talk more about his stats in the future, but he has not in the past done very well with that. Courtland Sutton now is the clear wide receiver one. At least in the before, Jerry Jeudy and him kind of had back and forth conversations because I think Jerry Jeudy was once, and then, or sorry, well, Jerry Jeudy was like twice the leading receiver there. Courtland Sutton, I think, was then once or twice since Jerry Jeudy was there. It's kind of tough when you put it in that perspective because now Courtland Sutton is the number one. And I think he will do well. I think he'll do probably at least the same, if not a little bit better, just based on the volume he'll probably receive. Because then you have Josh Reynolds, and I like Josh Reynolds. I also recognize that Josh Reynolds is a very reliable wide receiver 3 type B. Now, could he elevate his game to the wide receiver 2 role? Absolutely. I don't see that happening, especially with the quarterback position the way it is and the offensive line the way it is. Then you got Marvin Mims Jr. at wide receiver 3. He seems like someone who has a high ceiling but is going to be kind of leaning into that role over time. Tim Patrick, you never know. This team's very, very weird. Here's where it's kind of where Courtland Sutton kind of lands a little bit weird for me. Again, his volume's always really good, and he usually goes for very explosive plays. Josh Reynolds, like I said, is more of a wide receiver 3 guy. Marvin Mims currently in that wide receiver 3 kind of role. Tim Patrick, we haven't seen a healthy season from him forever, so who knows? He's good, or at least he was decent. Troy Franklin could be good. We got to see. The connection between him and Bo Nix could be awesome. I don't think he'll still get above the threshold for 700 yards. I think he's still going to fall on the depth chart. Little Jordan Humphrey, I think, has a lot of potential. This wide receiver group, I think, has a lot of potential, but what do you do with a bunch of potential when you don't have a bunch of production, So I worry about this team's confidence with their receivers because, I think they have potential in this team. It's just that this team can't feed everybody, and will anybody pop off besides Courtland Sutton? I think Courtland Sutton's the only proven talent currently going into this next season. So what do you really do? So it's kind of a little bit weird. Tight ends, you got Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich, and I like Lucas Kroll. My dad likes Lucas Kroll, so I kind of started liking him a little bit, and he's whatever, take that as you will. But really, it's Adam Troutman and Greg Dulcich. The tight ends on this team have not been historically used very much, so I don't think that'll change much. But it's going to be at least some newer quarterback in that role, so the tight ends will receive some love in the end zone, but probably not for yardage. Then you got the offensive line, and I do not hate the left side. Garrett Bowles and Ben Powers, I think, are very, very good. And then you kind of get on the right side. I'm like, okay, sure, they exist. I'm not hating on them. I just not excited about seeing the right side of this team go off. And Sam Mulcher, fine. He seems fine. I don't know. The offensive line does not scream to me really good this year, and I think they've had a lot of pressure put on them in the past, and I don't think that changes too much now. Then you have the defense, and the defense, of course, is piecing back together. Question mark. But the secondary has been butchered. It's a shell of its former self. Pat Surtain will be the main guy this next year. And in fact, I might actually change my prediction for the secondary because I think now looking at this even more, I kind of had some optimism with the secondary because it's always been historically decently good at coverage and all that. But now looking at it makes me actually not want to pick what I did pick. Either way, then you have the defense: Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Franklin Myers, Jonathan Cooper. It's so weird that defense is just very slightly above average. I know it's probably just basically average. Again, I'm almost switching my opinion of I think the secondary is a lot worse than I thought it was. I think the defensive line, looking at it again, is slightly better. I think they're around the average point for defensive line, maybe slightly below. Again, it's a bunch of there's not really a single big talent, so a lot of these guys can be covered pretty easily. So with defenses, your guess is about as good as mine, but this has a lot of potential. They got a lot of younger guys. They got a couple older guys that have a good veteran instinct. So we'll see how this team actually ends up producing this next year. Looking at stats, and again, I've been trying to avoid going through and confusing people now of scrolling up and down. If you look at the quick stacks of like Russell Wilson, then you got Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Historically, everybody's gotten at least 3,000 yards or around about. But historically, especially with Russell Wilson, he's been the main guy. And Teddy Bridgewater, his year, he was basically the main guy. Drew Lock was basically the main guy. But you also had some other people come in. So your guess is as good as mine when it comes to splits of the carries. I don't think we're going to see as weird of a dynamic between all of these, but I think all three of the quarterbacks, Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, and Bo Nix, could all receive play. Either way, you got touchdowns. I don't really see. I think Russell Wilson had the best with 26 touchdowns, which actually, looking back at it, not too bad. Safe with the ball too. Then you see some of these other guys: 16 to 11, 18 to 7, and then 16 to 15 with touchdowns and interceptions. So pretty safe overall with the ball, except for Drew Lock. Drew Lock was a little bit more out there. Rushing yards, Javonte Williams has not really gotten above 800 or into the 900s yet with rushing yards. His touchdowns are pretty low as well. It's again, he's been injured. He's now gotten more volume, but is that volume even really good? Especially when he's splitting a little bit with Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin. It's your guess as good as mine when it comes to that. Then you got sacks. Sacks have gone up every year pretty much. I think it will probably go up again. It's probably a pretty good guess that it probably will go up again. Just because the offensive line I'm still not in love with. I think that a lot of defenses have gotten better. So take that as you will. Then you got, of course, the receivers other than Courtland Sutton. Or Courtland Sutton and the receivers, sorry, I should probably clarify. There's never really been a really good wide receiver on this team since Peyton Manning's era. I don't recall at least, because they have not had a 1,000-yard receiver. And spoiler alert, I'm gonna tell you it's probably not gonna change. Courtland Sutton's good, but Courtland Sutton has been pretty much 800 yards cap. Maybe not. I know that's Jerry Jeudy got 900 yards. He's gotten a lot of touchdowns, don't get me wrong, but he's just not gotten the yardage. And he's not a yardage player necessarily. He's a spectacular player with some explosive capabilities. Even with more volume, I don't see Courtland Sutton being the 1,000-yard guy, but he's a very reliable guy. And as we see here, there's a bunch of guys that get 100 plus here, and I think that's even going to increase even more because I don't think there is a supporting second cast here. I don't think Josh Reynolds is a clear, easy 700. I don't think Adam Trautman is going to get even close to 700. I don't think that Marvin Mims Jr. will step up enough to get to 700. Will the end zones be good? Possibly. The end zones could easily be very, very good for this team. But historically, again, this team has not done well for the end zone and has not had two supporting cast members too much. Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, the exception there, of course. Tim Patrick, when he was around, did decent, and he's still around, obviously, but we don't know what his status is going to be in this next season. So it's going to be curious to see who that second receiver really becomes. I think it'll probably be Marvin Mims Jr., to be honest with you, but right now it's Josh Reynolds. So will those guys ever really change the rule? I don't think the wide receiver 2 changes much in my prediction based on what I see from the depth chart. Simple and to the point. Defense, then you got to look at the secondary and defense. This defense has gotten 30 to 40 sacks each year. Secondary has done very, very well in the past, but in recent years have gotten 10, just above 10. That's with Justin Simmons, with the better cornerback depth. Now it's just Pat Surtain, which cool. He's still very, very good, but now his supporting cast is a lot weaker. So what will happen in that case? It's going to be hard to really see them doing really, really well. Again, Pat Surtain's going to be awesome, but he can't carry a whole team by himself by getting 10 interceptions alone. There'll be occasional interception here and there by other players, but will they really get through? And looking at the defense, I think the defensive pressure will be what they need to really scheme around to win games. So very, very curious. And again, I pulled up Josh Reynolds' case just because he wasn't on this team before. And again, he's never reached 700. He's gotten pretty close. His last year was almost one of his best years. Probably is one of his best years with touchdowns included. So I think he's only getting better, but I just don't know if he'll quite, elevate with a new team like this, especially with not a great supporting cast at quarterback. At least Jared Goff, I almost said Jarrett Stidham. Jared Goff is a decent quarterback. I think he's probably arguably top 15, approaching top 10 maybe. That's probably a little ambitious to say, but you kind of get the point. Either way, I talked a little bit too much about this team. Let's go right into the predictions. All right, I'm not going to take too long. I talked a lot about the Broncos already, so we're just going to kind of try to speed through this as quickly as possible. Quarterback predictions. This is probably the one I'll take the longest with. Jarrett Stidham, Bo Nix, whatever. I don't think they're going to get 3,000 yards. I just don't. I think looking at other teams and based on the bell curve I have set up, there's a lot of teams who don't get 3,000 yards, or at least one quarterback on that team doesn't get 3,000 yards. I think Jarrett Stidham, Bo Nix, I think they're going to split too much. I think they will come in and out. I think Bo Nix, even if he comes in, probably won't be as successful as people hope or Broncos fans hope. And I could see him getting just above 3,000 yards, historically. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I think it's less than 3,000 yards no matter what. If Jarrett Stidham, in the event Jarrett Stidham is the starter and kind of comes in for 6 games, I think his games for 6 games will probably be at 7 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I debated on 5, but he seems relatively safe with the ball. 0 rushing touchdowns, not very many rushing yards. Jarrett Stidham will be that record. If I'm looking at Bo Nix for 12 games or 11 games or whatever, I think he could get in the 13, 14 range with maybe 8 interceptions, something like that, and then probably 100, 150, maybe 200 rushing yards. Cool. Maybe the rushing touchdown randomly. That's kind of a prediction for Bo Nix. It's hard, again, to judge a rookie QB because you can't really use his past stats as anything. You kind of just have to base off other rookies. If he starts the whole season, I could see him getting into 20, a 20 passing touchdown, maybe a 10 interceptions, a rushing touchdown, 300 yards rushing, something like that. He's a little bit more mobile with the ball. Either way, that's kind of my thought process when it comes to the quarterback position. So, sue me. Javonte Williams, less than 800 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. It's pretty cookie cutter. I just don't think he's going to be a very good running back. I think his production's limited. And with Samaje Perine, Jaleel McLaughlin there, it's going to be hard for him, even volume-wise, to really get a lot of catches. I do think his rushing touchdowns will go up, though. I think they'll need a lot of help in the red zone. And so Javonte Williams will end up being a really big back to go into the end zone. Maybe Samaje Perine steals some of that away, but I'm still optimistic that Javonte Williams is good in the end zone, or the red zone, sorry. So I still don't think he'll get the yardage. I think he's gotten 800 before, but I just don't see him doing it again this year with 2 other good supporting cast members and a rookie QB who wants to really, kind of, or rookie QB and QBs that want to prove themselves in the receiving game. I think his receiving game could be good, but we'll see. Cortland Sutton, I think, caps out at 999. I don't think he gets 1,000. I think the only reason I think he'll get 900 at least is because he's the only clear guy on that team that's going to receive yardage. And 7 receiving touchdowns is a step down for this year, but it's also a step up from his previous years. So it's somewhere meet in the middle. I think he'll just regress a little bit, but not too much. He's going to receive a lot of love. But again, in the red zone, the receivers don't really matter as much because anybody can catch the ball. They're going to probably scheme around other people who don't see it as much. Adam Trotman will probably get involved more. Greg Dolch will get involved more. So you'll see more end zone touches for other receivers other than Cortland Sutton. It'll be pretty good depth there. But Cortland Sutton, again, with not a great quarterback and he being the only person there, it kind of middles out where he's a potential 1,000-yarder, but I also don't think he'll get it. I think even 900 yards is a little optimistic. Josh Reynolds, less than 700. I'm not going to make a big prediction about that. 2 receiving touchdowns for his first season, sure. Adam Troutman, I think 3 has been his highest so far. I think he'll repeat that, less than 700 yards. Again, I just think the ball's going to be spread out so much. I just don't see many 700-plus yard receivers. If anybody does it, it's Marvin Mims, and I think he maybe caps out at 800. There you go. That's my prediction there. Then O-line predictions. I'm going to guess 50 to 60 sacks allowed. It's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. I just think 50 to 60 sacks allowed is just fine, It's not fine. It's just not good. I just don't think the right side will do very well, and the left side is even susceptible to a lot of the blitzes, I think. So O-line with a rookie QB or newer QB at the very least, they'll struggle a little bit out the gate with sacks. So maybe they'll get better as the season progresses, but I think they're going to struggle a little bit. The defensive sack prediction, I decided that I'm sticking to my original prediction with the secondary and the sack defensive line predictions, just because there's not going to be that much change. I think the defensive line has potential to do a little bit better, but with so many teams not getting up to 35 sacks, I can't say that the Denver Broncos are going to be one of those teams that does barely reach the 35. They could, 100%. I'm optimistic they will, but if I'm actually looking at this realistically, I probably do need to go ahead and just lump them in the under 34 stat. Then you got the interceptions. I'm going to still keep them optimistic with 11 to 13. I think 12 has been their lowest in recent years. I'll probably say they're 11. I think they probably could potentially get 10, but I don't think they get less than 10. I think the team's a little bit better than that in terms of secondary pressure. They could get 10, but I'm going to stick to 11 to 13 through my interceptions just because Pat Surtain's still there. The secondary has still historically been good scheming wise on this team against other teams, so we'll go with that. Looking at their schedule, I think some people expect them to be really fucking bad. I don't think they'll be really fucking bad. I just think they'll be not good. They'll probably go 2-4 in their division, maybe 1-5. But I'm gonna say 2-4 because fuck y'all. It's my team, my prediction, so it's a little bit biased. But I think it'll even out when you see my rest of my predictions. I think they get beat. I think they split. They go 1-3 against these 4 teams right here, and it's only because I think they could lose against the Panthers and could randomly win against one of these teams because that's what the Denver Broncos sometimes do. So 2-4 turns into 3-7. There you go, 3-7. They probably lose against the Colts, so 3-8. They probably go 1-2 against these teams, so 4-9. They probably go 1-3 against these teams, or 1-2 against these teams, so 5-12. 5-12 is a pretty safe bet. I've been saying they're going to go 5 wins pretty much all off season. They could potentially get 6. I could see them winning or losing another random game at 4. They're not going to be at 8 wins this season by any means. They're not going to be in that 7 win, I don't think, but they'll be in the 4 to 6 win category. That's just realistic. I could see them capping out 6. It really could. 7's a possibility. I don't see them losing less than 4, definitely, but 4 wins is their, I think, floor at the very least. So take that as you will. Denver Broncos fan giving a biased example of how we're not going to absolutely fucking suck. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like down below. Comment suggestions for future videos below, and tell me whether you agree with me or not. I've gotten a lot of critiques on these videos, and I like it. I like learning what you guys like and what you think. So move forward on it. Anyway, see you guys later. StraightA Dawson out of here.